by Mr. Varadharaju, who is Vice President of HR at Flipkart. Giving a brief introduction, he holds rich industry experience of over 26 plus years, and his contributions are not just restricted to building organizations for scale, but also contributing back to the larger HCM and student community. He is also a certified executive coach and coaches early stage tech startup founders for the scale. He has recently received the Global Top 25 HR Influencers Award also. Please welcome him with a huge round of applause.
Good morning, all of you. Yeah, so it's absolute pleasure and honor to kind of be in front of this tall and very elite learn group. So the topic given to me is evolving role of L&D. I think my colleague who did the keynote, I think set the platform really well. Let me see if I can just build on to that, right? So these are my personal experience. I try to kind of stitch not just the evolving role, because the most preferred topic today is how the HR is going to evolve or L&D is going to evolve. But what I'm going to really dwell is the why part of it. Why that we need to really evolve, and then what. And I'm going to really pause on how, because how I think like the speakers that were going to follow me, they're going to really touch on it. So more so the why I'm going to really focus and what aspect of it, right? So the broad theme that I'm going to really cover is, let's really understand what is the current macro. I think there's a typo there. It has to be macro. It's a macro environment today that we are really going through, and what is its impact on us? That's number one. And can we really draw possible learnings from the Great Recession? Because people today compare the recession that a possible recession that's going to hit us in 2023 could be equal or little more than the Great Recession, right? So what is that learning that we can really draw? So these two will set the context of why, and therefore the next could be like, and therefore why the L&D have to really evolve, and what could be its possible impact. And I have really taken little bold dare bets of what could be a possible L&D personas that could really evolve in future. So that's pretty much the storyline here. So moving on. So all of you know that there is GDP that's taking a real hit because of the situation that is evolving in the West, right? So from where we were at 6.1 to like 3.6, and possibly like next year the predicted GDP is around like 2.7. What does that really mean to us, right? So some of the macro factors today, I think we are all aware of the war and global uncertainties. Leading to the first and foremost is supply chain crisis. It's huge volatility, right? There is a shortage that it's going around, right? And leading to food and energy crisis. And these two actually like acting on to the increase in the inflation. Right, the inflation is around like 8.8%. From where we were at like 4.4 or 4.5, now it is around like 8.5 and above. Possibly the prediction is next year it could either come down or stay flat, but actually there's a rise in inflation. And all of this leading to a very conservative consumer mindset, right? People are thinking like, let me save for winter. So there is no free cash money available. It is also true that last year and year before that we just saw like a lot of VC investments, and this year is slightly quieter, and next year it would be even more quieter. There is no free money available, and it's true for the consumers also. I come from an e-commerce background, right? So we ran this BBD, the Big Billion Day. I'm sure all of you had a blast at it. So we had to take that extra mile to really convert the consumer's desire to demand, because people want to really spend on their actual need versus the want, right? There is a conservative mindset that's really evolving, and therefore what? So there is a fall in GDP that we really say, and there is an increase in CODB, which is cost of doing business, right? If you have a supply chain crisis, if there is an energy crisis that's really going around, obviously your cost of doing business will really go up, and that would really have an impact on your business, right? And we all know there is a leading, it's a predictable 2023, a possible recession can really happen. So there is also research from World Economic Forum. So what they're trying to say, there are resilient organizations and how they really respond to this, right? So there's an HBR article, the research that really says like those resilient organizations, they commit before the downturn. Let's say like 23 is what that a recession going to really come, that I'm not going to have a blind eye to it. I'm going to really commit to it, and all of them, they really say is they really act on it in terms of where is that I'm going to defund, where is going to I'm going to really fund more, right? What's going to be my OPEX? And in fact, the high resilient organization, they actually take measures of reducing their OPEX on an average of 1% as compared to the non-resilient organization, making their operating costs so very efficient, right? And then they create a very competitive advantage, right? So all of us, we know like we have gone through 3 such recessions, 2000, 2008, and now, right? So those companies come out very successful, right? They come out with a very different operating models. Their product market fit would have been very different because the consumer intent and behaviors have changed. So can you really think well ahead of the time, create that competitive advantage? And then this is something that I keep hearing more, frugality, less is more, right? I have 100 things to do. Yes, I can do 100 things, but do I have the bandwidth? Do I have the free cash? Less is more. So can you do a very sharp prioritization and then be very frugal about it? And then by doing that, can we really challenge our comfort zone of have the traditional mindset of what really worked yesterday may not work today. So can we really keep changing? And then the last, which is very important in my view, is those companies which are very resilient. They are highly consumer obsessed. When I say highly consumer obsessed, whatever that their policies, processes, innovation is everything centered around consumer. What is that I can do for my consumer, right? If you just have that mindset, your innovations is pivoted. In fact, my previous speaker spoke about the purpose. Purpose evolves with this, right? The deep desire to make a difference to the consumer, right? So that's pretty much in terms of the macro forces. Now let's see whether we can draw some inspiration or learnings from the Great Recession. There's a research done by McKinsey. You can just see actually the blue line. The blue line are the companies which are highly resilient. And you can just see that orange line in the bottom. That is a less resilient company. The one in the gray is somewhere in between, right? What they're really trying to say, the company with a high resilient, they actually outperform their EBITDA contributions by 10%. As compared to the normal company. The companies which are less resilient, they are down by 15% EBITDA. That means net, if I have to do a math, a company which is less resilient with this company with a high resilient, there's a delta of 25% EBITDA. That's quite a lot, right? And they do it over a period of like maybe close to a decade. That's how like from the downturn that you get into a growth, right? So now the big question in front of us is, what did they really do? What are those 10 things they did very different as compared to a resilient organization? First is they really understand the consumer intent, want, need very clearly. It's not just here and now and also 5 years down the line. So they pivot very, very clearly on it. And they have an innate ability to convert the consumer desire to a demand, right? So they kind of a front runner to it. That's number one. 2, innovation is their bedrock, right? These companies thrive through innovation. So that's the second thing. Then we live in the world of digitization, right? So there is also a lot of research around the world that companies who are really efficient, they are probably investing a lot on digitization. One example, the companies which have the on-prem, they are moving into cloud, right? So that's where they really become efficient, not just in their productivity, but also on the cost. And then how do I kind of minimize the manual effort? What are the processes that I can really make it, the company become very, very efficient through automation, right? And this is very important. I just want to spend a little more time. So it's called a CVP, the consumer value proposition, right? So all of us, let's take India as an example, right? So if you have to really break the demography, like we are pretty much a middle class segment and lower middle class. That really contributes a big chunk. And if you just dissect the consumer behavior there, so they want like a lot for less, right? So that's what the consumer behavior is. Can you really create a great value for a lower cost? I think those companies who do it consistently, they really ace. So that's the CVP that one need to really do it. And then by doing all of this, we are dealing with a set of workforce, right? And it's important as an organization, our responsibility is to continuously upskill, reskill, cross-skill, whatever that you really want to put. So that's very important. And then the last two that I just want to really touch is, I think this word is the most abused word of agile and agility in all of it, right? So the companies which really takes it with full spirit and going the last mile of living the true agility are the ones which would really sustain. And the last is, it's all about the change. I think you saw in the previous presentation, right? It's all about change management, right? So the terrains are changing, right? You cannot be a frog in the pond, right? What exists terrain is tomorrow, it's going to be very different. So we have to embrace change. If we do all of this 8-10 things very, very clearly, then what is that we would really impact? It's the CODB, cost of doing business. So the cost of doing business, like it's just not like you are very cost-centric, but you are also balancing with people-centricity, right? That's a fine balance that you can really get. And the difference is 25% higher EBITDA as compared to the less resilient organization. So this is the landscape, folks, that we are in today, right? These are the lessons that we are drawing from the Great Recession. The previous one is the market that we are living in. And therefore, let's kind of get into like the L&D function. What is that L&D function can really do? And if you look at these 10 things that I really spoke, hand on heart, I think we can actually do a lot in all of this, right? So the transition slide that I'm going to really spend a little bit around, what are the 3-4 things as an organization we can really focus? I'm going to go frugality way, less is more, right? What is that? Culture, right? Can we really focus? Because this is a very subtle element, because it's not very tangible. Nobody can really see a great result, right? So a lot of times these are like under the carpet. Can we really relive on the culture? Can we build the adaptive organization, right? An organization which is extremely agile, which is purpose driven. There is a vision which is really kept in place. If you ask me, like, let me just take a little bit of a Flipkart example. In less than 2 decades, right, the company has kind of become a leader in the e-commerce space, beating the global giant in their terrain. And India could be the only example in the global world, and we can't really find any other country which has become a world leader, a leader in the e-commerce space. China, of course, is a very wrong example. I would not really touch that, right? So how they could really do that, right? It's all about a company which is kind of having very customer obsessed, very strong purpose in mind, right? What is that they want to really do about it? A very strong vision. So once you really have, the companies would really thrive on. So that's the culture, very important. The second, leaning on to it, is the innovation, right? I just spoke about in my previous slide. The companies who thrive on innovation are the ones not just survive, but you become the trendsetters, right? So why do we really do innovation? It's not for today's sustenance. You better the lives of your consumer, and also you kind of take your company forward. And not just not the company forward, you make the your country proud. For us, it's can we make India proud of innovation? That's very important, the Uber idea. And then comes your learning strategy, right? By doing this, what should be my learning strategy? Your what comes in here. What is that I want to really do, right? How I do, I said I'm not going to really dwell on it, right? What are the 3 things that we want to really kind of make this learning strategy, which is very, which the employees can relate to it, our folks in L&D can really relate, and therefore they can actually walk the journey very seamlessly. And therefore, you see the skill gaps, the capability building, and all of this. So this is the landscape that I want to just leave it with you. Again, taking the lens of frugality, these are the 2-3 things which I thought it's extremely important as an organization that we have to really move forward, because we are dabbling with a very volatile environment here. I just want to really end with this personas. This is a very daring attempt. So what are the 4 personas which could really come in light? Culture. All of you know, like culture takes strategy for breakfast. I strongly believe this is going to be possibly a biggest track of that one would really evolve. Chief Culture Officer tracks, right? The second, we live in the world of age of intent. It's all about personalization. The track that would really evolve is behavioral data scientist track. It's a combination of like people understanding human behavior and psychology, and also having a little bit of a data scientist background. And can we really make those predictive journeys for our employees? That's going to be a brilliant track. And the third is your design specialist, right? So how can we really enable our business in making that 6D thinking, right? Right from your discovery to your delivery, all of that. Can you really kind of build those frameworks? This is what that is called as co-creation. Working with business, you are not so functional, right? And the last, of course, the coach is always there, but I have just added a prefix called belief coach, right? Excuse me. A lot of times, why we don't kind of go beyond is because of our limiting beliefs. The coach, if can really work at the belief level and kind of make us travel past those limiting beliefs, is going to have a huge impact. Impact your leaders, you're going to impact the organization, right? So this is again possible 4 personas. I think it would be the future trend for the L&D folks, which could really evolve. And with this, I would just end. Never waste the recession opportunity, just embrace it. It's an opportunity, right? And it's all about the mindset. Thank you, folks.